Good morning, basketball fans. Chris here with the Jäger Bombs Fantasy Sports to bring you my DFS NBA picks for Wednesday, October 26th. First thing we want to do here, if you are not a member, a couple things I want to go over here. If you want to get access to our cheat sheet, top plays, rankings, Discord chat, multitude of coaches that we have in that Discord chat to help you out with your DFS NBA research, questions, that sort of thing, lineup building, contest selection, bankroll management, that sort of stuff. Head over to patreon.com/JagerBombs, and for $10 a month, you can get access to our NBA package. That's $14.50 Canadian, or for $20 a month, you can get access to all of our sports, and we cover UFC, PGA, NBA, MLB, tennis, NASCAR, soccer, NFL, college sports, that's basketball and football, NHL, and then there's our all sports package right there for you. For our NBA package, we've got the team matchup. You're going to see all this just shortly. Team matchup and info stats, odds, player stats, updated injury tags on the sheet, projected and starting lineups, core plays for cash games and GPP, Discord chat, like I said, preview videos, live shows, GPP, and cash build strategies. So head over to patreon.com/JagerBombs today and get your subscription and join our winning team. With that said, let's get into today's slate. We've got a 10-game slate coming off a little bit smaller of a 4-game slate last night. Right off the bat, we've got 4 games with a 230 or higher total. That's Brooklyn at Milwaukee, Indy at Chicago, San Antonio at Minnesota, and Houston at Utah. Looking at some of these matchups here on the sheet, 3 that really stand out to me when looking at things like pace, offense and defensive efficiency, and fantasy points against. Atlanta is a very good matchup here, going up against Detroit. Detroit's obviously playing on a back-to-back here. Atlanta's a 7.5-point favorite. Detroit is 12th in pace, 27th in defensive efficiency, and have ranked 26th against guards, 22nd against forwards, and 26th against centers. The next matchup that kind of stands out for me on this slate is Chicago, 7.5-point favorites, 232.5 total, going up against Indiana, who is 8th in pace. So it's a pace-up matchup for Chicago tonight. Indiana is also 26th in defensive efficiency, and they rank 25th against guards, 29th against forwards, a little bit better, 14th against centers. The final matchup that stands out to me, looking at all of those factors, Utah at home, 7-point favorites, 233.5 total, going up against Houston. Houston is 20th in pace, kind of looking at Houston side of it here as well, 24th in defensive efficiency for Utah. So this game as a whole makes a lot of sense to get players from both sides and maybe run it back. But from the Utah side of things, Houston is 30th against guards, 23rd against forwards. They're really good against centers, so we maybe not talk about them. But those are 3 that stand out to me. Milwaukee would be next on that list, -4 favorites. Looks like it's going to be a fairly close game against Brooklyn. Brooklyn is 30th in defensive efficiency here, 16th in pace, so a little bit of a pace-up matchup for Milwaukee. And then the matchup that stands out fantasy-wise would be forwards going up against Brooklyn, as Brooklyn is 31st against forwards. So with that, I'm going to go through. First of all, I want to show you a couple things that I have added to the sheet for today. And if you're looking at this for the first time, we've got the overall ranks in terms of pace, offensive and defensive efficiency, last 5 games for those stats. These are all rankings on the main matchups tab here. Home and road per game ranks in terms of rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, and 3-pointers, and then fantasy points against opponent. Over on the starting lineups tab, this is where you're going to see all the projected lineups for the night, along with their salaries, their projections, and some season stats. As those lineups come in throughout the day, we come in here and check these off so that you can see them there. That also correlates on all these other tabs, because as you're going to see, over on the left-hand side of all the players, you're going to see projected, and as those starting lineups come in, that turns to an S, so you know those players are starting for the night. A couple things I've added to the sheet for those of you that have already been in here. We have an all players tab, so we have split up between guards, forwards, and centers, so you can go do your research there for individual positions. We've also got the all players tab, which includes everyone. It is sorted by DraftKings pricing. I've also had some requests, some people that play a lot of showdowns. They want to kind of see it by team. So I've added an all players tab by team. And what that does, and I've actually been using this quite a bit in my research every day and going through the picks. After I go through the team matchups tab, decide on which matchups I want to target. I'll then come in here and look at those individual teams. I've got it sorted by the projected starters, and then you can kind of see the bench players for each and every team coming through here. It's sorted alphabetically. So you can come through here and search through that. So like for Atlanta, here's your 5 projected starters. Here's the bench players. So for people that are playing showdowns, you may want to get some more exposure to a lot more bench players in your showdown just for some value and stuff like that. And that's something else I'm working on, is getting the showdown pricing for every game. Now that includes, I'm trying to get a CSV set up that I can easily upload that each and every day rather than going through downloading the showdown pricing for every single game and getting that in here. So stay tuned for that. That's coming shortly. But that tab is going to be new. And again, as that news comes in, this will resort to get your starting 5 in there for every team. All of my plays on the sheet you will find correlated between the all players by team, guards, forwards, and center tabs as well. They'll all be there. And then closer to lock, probably within that last hour, half an hour, that's when all the news breaks for the most part going into the main slate. That's where you will find changes starting to come in, starting lineups starting to come in. Very busy in the chat talking about all of those changes, because that is when a lot of the value does pop up. We did see that last night where Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was pretty much I don't even want to say game time decision. He was doubtful for most of the day, then came through later in the day that he was now questionable, and then boom, he's starting with no limit. He actually became a really good play. I was not on him myself, but he became a good play. Aaron Wiggins jumped into the starting lineup at 3,100, near min price there on DraftKings. He became a good play, so staying tuned to the Discord channel. Closer to lock is where you're going to get most of that information, and it can be game-changing. Okay, so let's go through. We're going to talk about some picks here. At the guard position, first of all, for me, it starts at the top with Donovan Mitchell and Trae Young. Obviously, Atlanta, talked about them. They have a terrific matchup here, facing Detroit, 27th in defensive efficiency, 26th in fantasy points against. Now, the reason I'm going with those two, I do like Dejounte Murray and James Harden here as well, but the reason Trae Young and Donovan Mitchell are going to be core plays for me comes down to usage. Trae Young's got a 35.5% usage rate, Donovan Mitchell 36.2%. That leads all point guards on this slate. And just looking at Atlanta specifically here at the guard position, Murray is more expensive, which is a little bit surprising. He's taken 15, 16, and 19 shots in those 3 games. He has flashed that 50-plus upside, so I like him from a GPP standpoint. But in terms of safety, it's Trae Young for me. He's just taken massive amount of shots, 22, 24, 25, and he is shooting absolutely terrible to start there. 36% is the best field goal percentage he's had so far this year. So I think there's not only a safe floor here with how many shots he takes, I think there is going to be more upside, and we're going to see some 60-point DraftKings and FanDuel point games from him once he starts getting in that 40%, 45% field goal percentage range, and even when that 3-point range, if he starts getting in this consistently in the 30 to 40% 3-point range, we're going to see these nice floors that he's provided. That's 48, 50, and 50 fantasy points is a 5x floor. If we start seeing those 60, that is not only a safe raw points from him every night, we're going to see some huge upside as well. And this could be one of those matchups where we do see that against Detroit. So that's where I'm going at the guard position. And then Donovan Mitchell over here. Garland is out, so I think Mitchell's usage is going to be even a little bit higher tonight. We're probably going to see that 25, around 25, we'll say, as a floor shots tonight, and he's been shooting quite well, over 50% in 2 of his games, a little bit down last game. But what I like here from a safety standpoint is he's providing stats in the rebounds, assists, and the steals categories as well. And he's shot 50-plus points from a fantasy perspective in all 3 games, and he's still under 10K. A little bit surprising just overall on this slate when we look at all of the players that Giannis is the only player that's over 11K right now. Jokic should easily be over 11K. Looking at him, we'll get to the center position shortly, but he just provides stats in all of these categories. Maybe not so much in the blocks and steals. He can definitely get in there and provide, those upside games in those stats. But when it comes to points, rebounds, and assists, he's a triple-double machine. He just missed out on his 3rd straight triple-double last game, so it was a little bit of a down game at 33 fantasy points. He only got 4 shots, 27 minutes. Things were down a little bit. He got into some foul trouble, but he still almost pulled off a triple-double on one of his low games. I think we're more going to see that floor of around 50 fantasy points. So seeing him under 11K on DraftKings makes a lot of sense there. We'll get over to the center position again shortly, but I just wanted to highlight that there is only one player over 11K on DraftKings, and that is just a little bit odd. Other players that I like at the guard position tonight, I talked about Harden and Murray as pivots off of Young and Mitchell. At the top, I like Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell for Minnesota. They're both running 23 and 27% usage here, 18.5 and 20 real life points per game. The matchup makes sense as San Antonio is 21st in defensive efficiency, 27th against guards, and both of these teams are running top 5 pace. So we could see upside from both of those players tonight as well. Getting down into the value range, Utah, Jordan Clarkson, 6th man of the year last year, stepping into a new role with Utah. He is jumping into a starter's role this year and has been excellent, and only around 6K, 6,300. The price is starting to slowly come up, still not at a season high price, but he has gone 29, 18, and 17 in terms of points. He's also providing around 4 or 5 rebounds and assists per game. The shots have been there outside of that first game against Denver, 17, 19, and 14 shots, over 50% in 2 of those last 3 games as well. He's providing an excellent floor, 48, 30. So around a 30-point floor and a 50-point upside at 6,300 is an excellent price if you're looking for a mid-range guy. Trey Jones for San Antonio, another guy who hasn't seen a bump up in price quite yet, going up against Minnesota, who hasn't been very good defensively. 12, 12, and 10 in terms of shots, 30-plus minutes in 3 straight games. He had kind of I wouldn't say his ceiling game, but pretty close in that 35 to 40s around his ceiling. At 5,500, just seems a little cheap. He provides 4+ assists in 3 straight, 4+ rebounds in 2 of his last 3. So he's a guy that is providing stats in multiple categories and gives a nice floor for cash, as well as some upside, especially at this price tag at 5,500. Ayo's someone I like for GPPs. He has been anything but consistent so far this year, which is a little bit surprising on this Bulls team, but that has helped keep the price down, 5,200. It's only came up 100 from last game. He shot 9 from 10 from the field on 34 minutes, so that was nice to see him get up there. Back up season high 6 rebounds, tying that first game when he got 37 points. So we've seen him put up 35+ fantasy points in 2 games. We've also seen him put below 20 fantasy points in 2 games. So very inconsistent, but that's going to have that, like I said, that keeps his price down. That also gives him a lot of points per dollar upside, and I think he's going to be a little bit lower owned here as well with Trey Jones right there. Is probably going to be the chalk play going up against Minnesota, 29th in fantasy points to guards. Moving over to the forward position here, pretty easy at the top. It's Giannis for me tonight. He's the only player, like I said, over 11K. He has just been absolutely amazing. Going up against Brooklyn, who is second to last in defensive efficiency so far this season. It's been pretty ugly from them. Giannis hasn't really even put up the fantasy points, but damn, he's been effective. 81% from the field, 17 to 21 last game, and that's only on 28 minutes, 12 rebounds, double-doubles in both of these games, 58 and 64 fantasy points. He's a guy that can go out and put up 70 fantasy point upside and gives you like a 55 to 60 point floor. Just locking that into your lineups on this big slate, that raw points, I think is where we want to go for cash games. In terms of pay up, it's between him and Jokic tonight. I think Giannis is probably with this matchup. Close spread, 232.5 total. Everything kind of lines up where he's going to be the chalk pay up tonight. DeMar DeRozan, again, another guy that hasn't been completely consistent, but they're 7.5 point favorites, 232.5. They got a high total in that game as well. The usage only 29%, so it's a little bit lower than some of these other forwards, but we know he can put up the upside as well. And going up against Indiana is a great matchup. Talked about that in the opening. 26th in defensive efficiency, 29th in fantasy points against the forward position. Markkanen, again, coming off a bad game. People are probably a little bit sour off of his, I would say, maybe around his floor game, but goes up against Houston, 24th in defensive efficiency. Great gap here because Utah is 10th in offensive efficiency, so that's a gap of 14 there in terms of their ranking. 23rd in fantasy points against forwards, and 13th and 11th for these teams in pace, so it should be a fairly high-paced game. Could be a little bit lower on GPP play for me. Oubre, when it comes to the Charlotte situation, they are down LaMelo Ball, looks like Terry Rozier. I think he's doubtful for tonight. Yep, he is doubtful for tonight, so he's going to be out as well. So there's going to be some usage to go around. I think that kind of drifts towards Gordon Hayward and Oubre the most. We can even probably consider Dennis Smith Jr., which seems crazy, but he's only 6K. He's put up 29, 23, and 37 double-digit points in each. He's got that assists in there as well and adds a couple rebounds, but that's not something we're really looking at from him there as well. So I like the Charlotte situation, so Oubre stands out for me. And the reason I've got these guys as GPP in this mid-range is because we have some lower-end value that I think maybe not be chalk, but definitely favored for me. Josh Hart has been awesome for Portland so far this season. I wanted to bring up his player card here real quick. We'll look at him. So he's had 34 or more. He's getting a ton of run in terms of minutes. He may not be getting, I talked about this in my DFSR article the other day, he may not be getting the usage in terms of taking shots, but he just provides excellent value in 3 different categories. Like I said, he's not putting up a ton of points because he's not taking a ton of shots, but he is heavily involved. 7+ rebounds in 4 straight, double-digit rebounds in 2 straight. He's had 5 assists in 2 of those 4 games as well. He's going to get you some steals in there as well. So he's giving you a nice average floor, 30.9 fantasy points on the season, which is right around that 5x. And I think he can give you that 6 to 6.5x upside here as well. He's a guy that I look to in cash games at only 5,800. If you're building around Giannis or one of the big guys and you're looking to go into that 5 to 6K range. Another guy that stands out, Kelly Olynyk. You can use him at center or forward position here, power forward center. 5,600 on DraftKings, 5,300 on FanDuel. Just seems a little crazy to start the year. He's been excellent. It's a high total game. They're favorites. Houston's 24th in fantasy, or 23rd in fantasy points against forwards. And if we go look at centers here, yeah, so they're tough against centers. So that's maybe where it gets a little bit tricky, but overall 24th in defensive efficiency for Houston, and he's just provided us a really nice floor for Utah here in this new look offense. Again, he's only taken double-digit shots in 2 of 3 games, 27+ minutes in 3 straight, but he's been close to a double-double last game, 13 and 9. But he's a player that provides value in 3 different stat categories, which gives him a very nice floor, especially we're looking for about 25 to 30 fantasy points from him for a nice floor. He's done that in 3 straight games and given us upside of 40 fantasy points. So I just like the price there. I think that price is probably going to start sneaking up into the 6K range here soon on both sites. So it feels a little bit of a buy low on both Josh Hart and Kelly Olynyk. Moving over to the center position. Obviously up top, we've got Nikola Jokic, who I talked about, still under 11K on DraftKings. It's a little bit, just seems like he should be 11 to 11.5. The sites are kind of taking their time in adjusting these prices early on in the season, which helps create maybe a little bit more of a balanced lineup where you don't need to go superstars and scrubs as much. But when you get players like Aaron Wiggins last night at 3,100 that jumps into the starting lineup in a good matchup, high-paced game, it kind of makes it easy to go in and lock in 2 top guys, which we may want to look at Nikola Jokic and Giannis together tonight. And if we go and pair them together, let's just go throw Giannis at power forward and Jokic. It leaves us a 4,650. So if we can get a couple 3 to 4K guys in our lineup, then we can kind of go balanced into that 5K range. I think that may be probably more of a GPP build, going up with 2 stars like that, 2 of the most expensive players on the slate. But it's definitely going to be viable if we get some. And on a big slate, we are more likely to see some of those low-end guys jump in with early injuries. Couple more guys here I want to talk about. Nikola Vucevic for Chicago. Again, high total. They're a favorite. He's up in that 25% usage rate, which is really good for centers. 18.3 points per game, 13-point rebounds. So he's averaging a double-double here to start the season. Indy is 26th in defensive efficiency, a little bit better in terms of fantasy points against centers. But this is a pace-up matchup for Chicago, which I talked about early on. And Vucevic has just been, like we see here, he's quite a bit down the board. So it's a nice mid-range place to go if you're not going with Jokic here. You want to pivot off him. 30-plus minutes in each game, 12 or more shots in all 4 games here as well. I don't think we're going to see that 23 rebounds again, but he's had 17 and 23 in 2 of his 4 games. So he's more than capable of smashing those double-doubles and getting you those bonuses on DraftKings. Right now, he's providing like a 30 32-point floor with upside of 50 to 55 points at 8K. I think that price is going to start going up for him as well. And going down the board here a little bit, we got Podol here for San Antonio. Like I said, this is a very high-paced game here. The matchup may not look great because Minnesota's 13th in defensive efficiency, 16th in fantasy points to centers when they're running out Cat and Gobert. Pretty good defensive guys there. If you're looking at their defensive efficiency, they're both under 100 defensive rating. So it's not the greatest matchup. This is more about the price. They're going to be coming from behind, and just the points per dollar, 5.8 on DraftKings, so a little bit better play over on DraftKings at 6,400, but even 66 at 5.4 fantasy points per dollar makes a lot of sense in a very high pace, should be a high-scoring game. And it feels like he's a little bit of a buy low here as well early in the season. San Antonio is supposed to be tanking, but they're actually looking pretty decent, 27-plus minutes in all 3 games, double-digit shots in 2 of 3, 9 in that other one here against Philadelphia on the road. 3 of these games have been on the road as well. They're going to be on the road for the 4th straight game here tonight. Double-doubles in back-to-back games. He's adding in those assists as well. He can pick up a block and a steal here and there as well to kind of add on, but he's given us, over the last 3 games for sure, 35-point fantasy floor with upside of 40 at 6K is just really good points per dollar. All right, other stuff on the sheet here. We've got the NBA tiers tab. I'm going to have my rankings for each position for guards, forwards, and centers up a little bit later today as well. You can come check that out. Thank you for watching the video. And again, if you're not a member, head over to patreon.com/JagerBombs and get your membership and join our winning team today. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you in Discord chat.